Hi everyone, it's Chris here with one of my vinyl video updates showing some records I've picked up by New Zealand artists. We'll start off with what's playing, which is one of a couple of Auckland indie guitar bands I'm going to be showing that have put out records recently. This is New Gum San, named after an Asian restaurant not far off K Road, which is the place to hang out if you're an indie guitar band in Auckland. The record's called New Gold Mountain. I think it's self-released, but it is getting a wider spread release later in the month. At the moment I had to go to the bar where one of the members worked to pick this up, and yeah, it's a nice kind of not too full-on, kind of fairly gentle indie guitar record, and I'm enjoying it a lot. I only picked it up yesterday, so I haven't had a lot of listens. Something else, really recent pickup, this just arrived in the mail today from Christchurch band The Transcendence, and this is a 10-inch vinyl EP. They've put out a lathe cut album earlier this year on a Peter King lathe cut. This is a lathe cut as well, but it's one of the Littleton real-time lathe cuts, so it's cut into vinyl and it sounds fantastic. It does make them quite pricey for a 4-track EP, but it's interesting. They cover a Will Oldham song, and it's got some of that kind of gothic, indie, kind of folk, dark kind of feel to it. It's interspersed with little vocal clips from movies and so on, and like I say, I haven't had a lot of time to listen to it, but I'm pretty impressed on first listen. They've done a really nice job of the artwork. There's also in here a lyric sheet, and you can find this through Facebook. I think they've probably got a Bandcamp page as well. They've got a website actually, thetranscendence.co.nz, and it's called Lay Where You Collapse, by the way. A couple of older things I picked up. I'm always on the lookout, big long list of Flying Nun and so on that I'm after, and Look Below Go Purple, their first EP, Bewitched, from that kind of first, was it the first wave? Maybe not, I mean they were kind of mid-80s, but definitely the classic period, 80s period of Flying Nun. Dunedin 4-piece, all women, and yeah, and I really like them. Not everyone's a fan of them. Some people kind of go, oh, I don't know, and they kind of, I think there's a bit of bias in there myself. I think they're a great band. They did some great jangle pop, but there's some other stuff on here as well. Circumspect Penelope, which is one of the tracks I really like on here, has almost kind of a bit of a droney feel to it, and yeah, it'd be really nice to see something happen with these 3 EPs and see them compiled in some decent way on vinyl. There is a CD compilation which I think is out of print as well. So it's Look Blue Go Purple, and a band often associated with Flying Nun, but this album's actually on Matador. This is Vortura from Belter Space, their 4th album, and one I really like. I'm a big fan of Belter Space. It'd be fair to say though that not all of their albums are as strong. Thermos is one I'm not that keen on, for example. I showed Tanker in my last video, which is another really great album. And this one, Vortura, is really strong. It's great. This is out on Matador Records in 1994, I think. Here's the inner sleeve. And I'm on the hunt to fill out some of the missing gaps in my Belter Space vinyl discography. Robot World is the one that I'd really like to get next, and the Greater Spader EP. Another old record, but a brand new copy of it. This is the Ponsonby DCs, and their EP, which came out in the late 80s. I'm not sure of the exact year. So this was pressed in the United States after the band kind of split. One of the members, or some of the members, were in San Francisco hanging out with the Dead Kennedys. They don't sound anything like the Dead Kennedys. Who kind of said, oh, you should press this up. So they did. It got some college play, especially the track G'day Mate, which is the standout song on here. It wears the 80s boldly on its sleeve, this EP, and I don't mean that necessarily in a good way. Lots of kind of quirkiness and saxophones in places. It reminds me of another New Zealand band which probably sold a lot of records but weren't that renowned now as people look back, which is the Netherworld Dancing Toys. But I think the artwork on this EP is fantastic, and there are a couple of really really standout tracks on here. As I say, it's not new, but it's a new copy. So a box apparently was found of copies that hadn't been sold, and they've just been put out in the shops. The other indie guitar band from Auckland that I wanted to show was this, Desperate Models, Roaches. They just released this and then promptly split up. There's only 100 copies of this pressed up. I've got number 10, and it's their album called Roaches. It's pressed, so what we've got here is, I'll show you this first. So just the die cut sleeve, black sleeve, which they've sprayed, stenciled with the name of the band and the name of the album, and the album itself on nice kind of emerald green vinyl. As I say, they've split up, and some of this reminds me, this is going to reference other New Zealand bands, so if you know them you'll know what I'm talking about, and if you don't you'll be lost, but there you go. The Czechs, who did kind of a bluesy rock kind of sound a few years ago. Other parts of it is kind of a woozy kind of feel that reminds me of bands like Cool Rainbows or even Connor Moccasin. They don't really sound like anything like those bands, but there's just elements of it that make me think of that as a reference point. Yeah, and I've been playing this a lot. I think it's a strong album. Another album which is really strong, and I think is a contender for Best of the Year list in a completely different vein, is this one from Marlon Williams. Now, he's been playing with Tammy Nielsen, who's a kind of a big, ballsy, full-on kind of country rockabilly singer, and Delaney Davidson, who does this kind of otherworldly, ghostly blues kind of comes through from another dimension. He's been playing with them, and it's been a great juxtaposition, but this is Marlon Williams on his own, or with his band, the Yarra Benders, and this is something different because he has the most amazing voice, just this amazing, clear, pure tone to his voice, and there's a kind of it's a country folk album, but with a gothic kind of dark touch to it in places. I think he's a great lyricist, he's a fantastic singer, and it's not going to be to everyone's taste because of that country element, but just the performance of this and the production of it is really standout. It's a very, very impressive album, self-titled album from Marlon Williams. A couple of 7-inches just to finish off. The Shocking Pinks, I won this in a competition. This is from 2007. Victims in April-May, released on DFA. Shocking Pinks were signed to DFA for a while. There was hope of an album. It never came about, but they released quite a quantity really of 7-inch singles and 12-inch singles on that label of various things. The Guilt Mirrors album, which was the first new material from Shocking Pinks last year, was great, and news just out that the first Shocking Pinks album from the early 2000s, I think, Dance Dance Electric, is going to be pressed on vinyl for the first time, which is great news. Flying Nun talked about doing it a few years ago, but it was in the stage of them never actually getting around to doing anything they said. It didn't happen, so I'm pleased about that. And I saw this great video the other day, which was put together by some students in a film school, and it was this kind of like nice kind of like animated kind of parody with a story about gender politics and based around a robot going to the moon and the first moon landing. Anyway, I'll put a link to it down below. And the soundtrack, however, really stood out. Nice kind of surf guitar instrumental. So I looked at the credits, and it was Gray Bartlett. Gray Bartlett's probably best known in New Zealand for a pretty schlocky kind of 80s TV program. That's country, and kind of really being in that kind of vein of kind of very mainstream kind of national country covers. But he's a great guitar player, and in the 60s produced some great material. So this single that I picked up, which is Secret Agent Man, backed with Return to Zero Man on WaihekeRecords, 2 Gray Bartlett tuned instrumentals, surf guitar, yeah, great stuff, really, really cool. And finally, a little kind of area of my record collection that I'm into is songs about New Zealand places or locations and name-check geographic locations. And this one's extra special because it name-checks the place where I live. This is the Tui Trio with a single on WaihekeRecords. I'm not sure of the year, it will be in the 60s. The Tui Trio sing Beautiful Waiheke Island, and it's backed with Haere Rā. I have got an album with this on, but this is a really nice copy of this single, and it's hardly been played, so it sounds fantastic. It doesn't betray its years with crackle or anything, so that's nice from them. A kind of vocal Māori trio from the 60s. So that's it, my run through of things I've picked up recently by New Zealand artists on vinyl. Thanks for watching. You can catch up with what I've been playing, what I've been buying, radio show, podcasts, videos and so on at facebook.com/countingthebeat or www.countingthebeat.gn, that's gen.nz. Cheers.